Welcome to the final week of our Lent homily series, Redirecting Our Hearts. Last week, we looked at how worship should not stop at the church door when we leave Mass on Sunday. It's something we should do always and everywhere. This final week, we'll address, I think, the main challenge to being healthy in the pillar of worship as followers of Jesus. A major roadblock that can prevent us from worshiping rightly is putting anything else in a position more important than God, or letting other things encroach on God's centrality in our lives. This goes back to the first two of the 10 commandments and the greatest commandment that Jesus gave us. God said in Exodus, "I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. You shall not have other gods besides me. You shall not make for yourself an idol or a likeness of anything in the heavens above, or on the earth below, or in the waters beneath the earth. You shall not bow down before them or serve them. For I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God." Now, jealous here means demanding exclusive allegiance. What God is saying in a nutshell here is that He's the one who set Israel free from slavery, and that nothing else should come before God. God is their liberator. And similarly for us, God has set us free. That's His great act of saving love, saving us from sin and death through Christ. If we constantly keep in front of us the fact of God's saving love, it'll be clear that anything else we could devote ourselves to pales in comparison. Now, here's the really challenging part, the tough question for you and me. What if you and I stopped for a moment and asked ourselves, is God really number one in my life? Or do I allow anything to get in the way of keeping God at the center? If we're honest with ourselves, I think some things will come to mind that we might catch ourselves putting first sometimes. Some of the obvious things I think we see in this country are money, self-advancement, ourselves, image or popularity, and political allegiance. It is entirely possible, I think, for other things to move in on the center of our lives and push God more to the outskirts. We might, for example, make our kids' sports activities or future college or our obsession with our favorite team become activities that we end up putting before God. And if you're like me, you can be really good at fooling yourself that you're not actually out of balance on your priorities. Put another way, if I look at my calendar or my to-do list or a graph showing how I spend my time, would it be apparent that God gets the first and best of my time and energy, or what's left? Now, don't get me wrong. We certainly should have leisure or downtime, something we're in a deficit of in this country especially. And we, of course, should pour our love generously into our children's lives, activities, and futures. For many, God has called you to raise children. The question is really, where do these things come from? What should motivate us in these activities? What's the why behind our doing these things? And that's where keeping God first is so important, because if God who loved you into being and gave everything to save you from sin and death, that God, if He isn't first, if He isn't the focal point, then all those other things lose their true beauty, true significance, and can become objects of obsession that leave us empty, unbalanced, and unhealthy. God is the why behind all that we do as followers of Jesus. Without that why being kept front and center, we can become directionless and end up worshiping something else. The Catholic Church teaches that human life finds its unity in the adoration of the one God. The commandment to worship the Lord alone integrates man and saves him from an endless disintegration. In other words, worship holds us together. St. Paul in the second reading from this past weekend says that those who are in the flesh cannot please God. But you are not in the flesh. On the contrary, you are in the Spirit, if only the Spirit of God dwells in you. Now, when St. Paul is talking about the flesh and the Spirit, what he means is the old self and the new self. So as followers of Jesus, when we were baptized, we became a new creation, adopted sons and daughters of God. We said no thank you to the idols and other objects of worship that our society might put before us. Worship keeps us more holy as our new selves And as our new selves, we can please God, glorifying Him by our lives. In the gospel reading, Jesus raises his friend Lazarus from the dead. It's a reminder of the power of the God we worship, of God. Jesus tells Martha, Lazarus' sister, "I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, even if he dies, will live. And everyone who lives and believes in me will never die." Is there a greater reminder of why God should be the only thing we worship? Who else and what else can do that? Nothing. Jesus is the way. There's nothing else that compares. And there's no one else that has ever or will ever love you so much and sacrifice as much as He did for you and me. Well, I hope that you've found this Lenten journey of redirecting our hearts beneficial. We're now approaching Palm Sunday and Holy Week. You might say it's the most intense week of our worship. I encourage you to make a commitment now to walk every step of Holy Week with grateful hearts. Really dive into it this year. We'll walk through Jesus' act of saving love and victory over death. It's an amazing opportunity to renew your gratitude and reinvigorate your heart for worship. And I look forward to journeying that week with you.